It's Ash from Super Videos back for another Q&A video. This is going to be Q&A number 57. As always, if you're not caught up with The Walking Dead's TV show and comic book, you may not want to watch this video because it may spoil some things for you. That being said, let's get right into this. The first question comes from Ronnie Thomas, and he asks, do you think Negan was in the same hospital that Rick is in the first episode? Because in the comics, Negan is in the hospital just like Rick. Do you think this is possible? So I don't think it's possible. I think they were in two separate states. They weren't even in the same state. I think Negan was in Washington, and obviously Rick was in Atlanta, which means that he was in Georgia. So I think they were in different states, so it's impossible for them to be in the same hospital. It would have been interesting if that was the case, but I don't think it is. Next question also comes from Ronnie Thomas. You ask, do you think Eugene will try to poison Negan? So obviously you're talking about the TV show. I don't think so. I think they already went that direction once and, had Eugene not poison Negan. So I don't think they're going to revisit a story that they have already kind of touched on. So I don't think that's going to happen. It might, but it's unlikely because they already visited that story. I think it's better for them to visit new storylines and new ideas instead of going back to something they already did. The next question comes from Nick Martini, and you ask, if AMC smartened up, could they raise The Walking Dead's budget to a very high number like 6 million or higher per episode? It would only help and make the show even better. So I do not get why they give it such a low budget. Game of Thrones is 10 million per episode. I mean, come on. And then you put an LOL in there. So I agree with you that the budget is low. I don't know how much budget is appropriate. I think there are people who are better at doing that than us as fans because we have no knowledge about what happens in the background, how much money actually gets invested in these things, but I definitely agree that the budget needs to be higher. And that's one of the main reasons I think the quality of Season 7 was low. But yeah, we're gonna have to wait and see what Season 8 brings, especially with the new lawsuit that's coming up and everything like that. So I hope things change for the better, but we're gonna have to see what actually happens. That's a very good question though. It was already asked a few times before as well, so very good question. Next question comes from David Farley. You ask, I bought the 7th season on DVD a few days ago. My question, I was rewatching Hearts Still Beating. Did they really confirm the person that was watching Rick and Aaron, but they never said who the character was? I know it was from the junkyard, but which character, or does it really matter? I think you basically answered your own question. It doesn't really matter. I think that as long as we know it was one of the members of the junkyard, it was enough. But I think through conversation between Gabriel and Rick, it was revealed that it was Tamiel, one of the characters from the junkyard, but they never actually mentioned it. But it doesn't really matter, like I said. Next question comes from Plants vs. Zombies Killer 101. You ask, who will die, Tobin or Scott? They are both at risk of dying, especially with All Out War coming up in Season 8. Who is more likely to die? I think Scott is probably more likely to die because Tobin has got some development, so they might actually want to invest more time on his character and make him a bigger character. So we're gonna have to wait and see what happens, but I think Scott is at bigger risk of dying because we haven't seen too much of him and he is a safe character to kill as a background character. Next question comes from the one and only bad guy. You ask, who do you think will kill Jadis? That's actually a very good question. I did a separate video talking about this. I think there are 3 main characters that would be great characters to do this. One is Rick, obviously. The next is Michonne, and the third is Daryl. My picks are first probably Rick, then Michonne, then Daryl. Next question comes from Royals King 35 Royal. You ask, who would win in a one-on-one battle? Governor versus Negan. That's a tough one to call. There's a lot of discussion online about this. Who's better one-on-one, Negan or the Governor? I think the Governor is more ruthless. And I think for Negan, without Lucille, he doesn't have too much of an upper hand on anyone else. So I would give it to the Governor. At one point, I gave it to Negan. But at this time, I think I'm beginning to see why people go towards the Governor being better than Negan one-on-one. So yeah, that's my pick. The last question comes from John Borrego. You ask, will the lawsuit have a big effect on the show? I definitely believe it will. I don't know whether that's going to come up in season 8 or season 9 or maybe even season 10, but I definitely think that there will be some impact. I hope that it's for the better, like I said, but we're going to have to wait and see what happens with the lawsuit and how far it's going to go. Obviously, the lawsuit with Darabont is still pending as well, so AMC has that lawsuit to deal with as well. That's it for this Q&A video. Thank you for everyone who participated. If you want to participate in my next Q&A video, write your questions in the comment section below. Make sure to put Q&A before your comment. So see you next time for another super video.